It is so wonderful to be here today speaking with you. And before I'm going to speak, y'all are going to sing. You didn't think that was going to happen, did you? You didn't expect that. Let's sing that last part of the peace song, starting with take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. You sing so sweetly. Let It Begin With Me is the title of my talk, and this came to my heart because this is a song a lot of us grew up listening to, and it's so sweet. But when I think back to my childhood, I remember hearing this song, thinking, that's a wonderful message, peace, and yes, let's have that for the whole world. But then we'd get to the part where we would sing, and let it begin with me. And I thought, that's kind of selfish. That's like saying, I want the world to win the lottery, but let it begin with me. I want the goodies first. And I thought, well, that's kind of a bad way of saying that. But of course, that was when I was a kid growing up in South Dakota. I'm now an adult living in fully enlightened Yuma, Arizona. And what do we know as metaphysicians and students of science of mind? What it means, let it begin with me. That every revelation of God's truth begins right here. Not tomorrow, not in a year from now, but in the power of the now moment. It doesn't begin with the other guy, it begins with us. We change the world by changing ourselves. Now that's fantastic. That's a powerful, I think, right that we have, and it's a powerful and amazing responsibility, but not one that we get freaked out about or daunted by, but that's fantastic, that we can change the world. How does that feel, to know that that's possible, and to know that you've done that? We've all done that, whether it is a whole planet or a change we've made in our families or our communities or in our workplaces by simply coming back to center, realigning, and remembering who we are. And when we remember who we are, divine, perfect, whole spiritual beings, eternal spiritual beings, enjoying a perfect human experience, how can we not know the perfection in everybody else? I think that's fantastic. So what's happening here is just like the Dalai Lama says, and this is a quote all of us love, be the change you want to see in the world. We want to have more peace in the world? Have peace in our hearts. Reverend Marilyn so beautifully has said from this very pulpit, like take, for example, when we're driving and we have a little bit of road rage and you want to express yourself by using one finger. We have those moments, but we return. Those are the seeds of war. That's the opposite of peace. And we know that what is known in one place is known everywhere. So there's a lot of power. When we return to center with ourselves, we know that that is our gift for the world. Dr. Ernest Holmes, the founder of our spiritual movement, says this, if you want to start a chain reaction that will help those around you, realizing that it must begin at the center of your own being, suppose you take time daily to say these words to yourself, very simply and sincerely, and perhaps repeat the process a number of times each day. I know that nothing but good can go from me, and nothing but good can return. It is my inward desire that everything I touch, every person I think of, shall be blessed and helped. It is my affirmative prayer, which I completely accept, that even as I pass people in the street, some silent influence of good shall reach from me to them. Passing in the street, words are not needed. Some great demonstration, you don't have to stop someone and tell them that they're loved and that they're whole. You can simply know it for them and know it about yourself. That is wonderful. And Dr. Holmes says this is so important that he puts this in here, that this is not a notion of conceit. It's a humble remembering of who we are. That's fantastic. To know our power isn't saying that we're better than anybody else because we believe in that same power for everyone else. This is a humble, centered knowing. And it's part of why we're here, is to remember this and to express this not only in our own lives, but to allow that expression in everyone else's. But of course, this is a liberating message that's not just found in our own teaching. Found wonderful quotes about, from around the world, from many different teachings, about the power of one person making the decision to change the world. We'll start with a fun one. Unless someone like you cares an awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. Dr. Seuss. Isn't that fantastic? If the world seems cold to you, kindle fires to warm it. Lucy Larcom. I am a little pencil in the hand of a writing God who is sending a love letter to the world. Mother Teresa. I had not heard that one. How wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. Anne Frank. The purpose of life is not to be happy, but to matter, to be productive, to be useful, to have it make some difference that you have lived at all. By Leo Roston. It will end with a Confucius quote. To put the world right in order, we must first put the nation in order. To put the nation in order, we must first put the family in order. To put the family in order, we must first cultivate our personal life. We must first set our hearts right. That is wonderful. Isn't that fantastic? That's very inspiring. And that it begins with us, and that we don't change others. We may take peace. We may see an example of people not experiencing peace, but we don't want to change them. We want to know the truth about them, but we don't change them. And I think often a story that comes to mind is one time I was at a local restaurant enjoying a meal with a friend, having a very nice, happy experience, and there was a family, husband, wife, mom and dad, little boy, little girl, and they weren't having a very pleasant time. The kids weren't talking, they weren't playing, the parents weren't talking to the kids, and there was a very strong presence of sadness. This family wasn't interacting, and they were out for a meal and very silent. So of course, as a science of mind practitioner, I go within and I first release my need for them to be happy. It's not my business. It's not my place. And then I know for them, I did a spiritual mind treatment, knowing that the love within my heart is known everywhere, that that's the truth of God. And that what I was seeing in them, that's just external. That's just the temporary stuff. That was the humanness. That doesn't have power. So I reminded myself not to get caught up in that. And I remembered their truth. And what happened, do you think? Those little games that they have it was at Cracker Barrel, those little games that they have on the tables? The dad started playing with the son. The mom started kind of teasing and playing with the daughter. They were playing with her hair and her little jewelry, and they woke up and lit up. That's fantastic. But we remember that didn't have to happen. It did in this case. But we release our need to see a big change in someone else, because within me, there was a fantastic shift by simply going within and remembering the truth about myself. And that's where I think there's a lot of lessons from the peace song, that it begins with us, but there's also something, by the way, the peace song was written, Let There Be Peace on Earth, by Jill Jackson, a wonderful lyricist. And her husband, it was a music composer. But I really will appreciate the line in there, let this be the moment now. That here in Science of Mind, we don't wish, we don't beg, we don't kind of wonder, we know. And that's in the power of the now moment. Let this be the moment now. Not, wouldn't it be wonderful if there were peace someday, or eventually, or one of these days? We remember in this teaching that everything is perfect now. It's waiting to be revealed in our own minds, and therefore in our own experiences. So I think I really honored Jill Jackson in picking those words and knowing that it begins with us, and when? Right now. Now, I don't know if you know, if you've been to another Science Mind Center, but this song, the one that we sing when we make our circle at the end of the service, is sung at a lot of services, a lot of Science Mind Centers around the country. And if you've noticed that our words as we sing them here are a little bit different than maybe how you grew up singing the song as a kid. And when new people come, you can kind of see where the lips say a different word. We don't say God as our Father, we say God as our power, because we know God is not a deity, but more of a power and a presence. But I think it's all about remembering who we are. And when we remember who we are, we remember that we do have the ability to change the world, because that is God within us going to work. God does the work, not us. And that's the fantastic thing. I think it's important for us to remember that we are powerful, and that's the power of God coming from us. And I want to read something that's just a fantastic reminder of who we are. And it's called The Unity of All Life by Evelyn Mulford. Just hear these words. They're so richly written. And the reminder that we are permanent, cosmic, eternal spiritual beings made of God stuff. Certainly relatives of the stars, of the mountains, of the streams, of all that there is. So in the unity of all life, she writes, the carbon atoms that whirl and dance in me came from South Africa and were the ones which chose to be me instead of a diamond. My iron atoms lay for eons in their bed in Minnesota, and the copper that dances within me came from Montana. The salt in my tears and blood washed upon the shores of earth for billions of years, and prehistoric fish swam in my waters. My atoms were in the first of the flying creatures that dared to overcome the law of gravity. Even now they whisper, freedom. My atoms were in the hand that placed the crown of thorns on the master. I was part of a plank in the Mayflower and in the hearts of John Alden and Priscilla. I am the woman, man, child of the universe, the all in all, the one out of many, the many out of one. I have always been and always will be. I am and I know I am. I will always know I am. I am the greenness of living plants, the whiteness of snow, the purpleness of dawn, the blackness of midnight. I am the atoms of generations long ago transformed and countless creations yet to emerge. I am matter. If you destroy me, I become energy. If you think me, I become. I am thoughts made manifest. I whirl and dance and sing in the song of the universe. I am the dance of life. There is no death. Nothing dies. I never die. I change. I am one with this universe. And isn't that fantastic? And we remember this truth about ourselves through our spiritual practices. And Science of Mind teaches affirmative prayer, meditation, visualization. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us to practice, not just here on Sunday for an hour, but at home in our prayer chairs, in our time of meditation, and our time of affirmative prayer, to welcome this remembering of who we are, that God is within us so completely, that God expresses through us perfectly, that we are supported so perfectly. And it's very important, I think, and this song reminds us that this world-changing power is available to everyone. And that's something so revolutionary, I think, about our teaching, about other metaphysical studies, that it's not the prophets, it's not the high priests, it's not the monk on top of the mountain that's enlightened. We all have the same access to the same power, the same direct access to the wisdom of God. That's incredible. We don't have to come to church. You don't have to come here. We love it that you do. And where two or more are gathered, and we teach here. But we are all born into this world with everything we need for a direct communication with God. God is within us, and I like to say that there is no middleman. Isn't that that's powerful? And I think this teaching has a very humble message, is that you need no one else. And where else do you hear that? You don't need to belong anywhere. You don't need to have the help of someone else. As a Science of Mind practitioner, one of my first goals is to remind somebody of their power, remind someone of their wholeness. And after a licensed session, people say, oh, that was great. When can we do it again? And I encourage them, let the prayers work. You do not need me. You have all the power. And I think that's such a great cosmic unifying force. And I love that Kate was so in the one mind consciousness read from Ralph Waldo Trine's In Tune with the Infinite, because in preparing my talk, I use a quote from him. Great should be the joy that God's boundless truth is open to all, open equally to all, and that will make each one its dwelling place in proportion as they earnestly desire it and open themselves to it. In proportion as we earnestly desire it. That's fantastic. How much peace are we revealing in our lives? Well, that equates to how much peace we're ready to reveal, or we're wanting to reveal. That's fantastic. God plays no favorites. The universe plays no favorites. The universe, God, through law, reflects to us what we are ready to experience. And it's good for us to be aware of what we're ready for and what's coming through. But it's good too not to judge. We're kind to ourselves. And we know that life is a kind of a gentle blossoming and unfoldment. And we know that it's happening at the right time, so we don't judge ourselves. But the fantastic thing is to remember that God does the work. I remember when I first came across science of mind philosophy, it was so wonderful to realize that I don't have to figure it out. Because I don't have the tools. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the awareness. God does. If we want to reveal more abundance in our lives, we know that. We open to it. We remember who God is. We remember who we are. And we release it. And isn't that fantastic? We don't have to worry. We don't have to struggle. And we don't have to figure it out. That's how we can create peace on earth. We don't have to know the formula. We don't have to know how God does it. It happens through God's hands. I think that is a wonderful, powerful message. And we are guided. I think that's a wonderful thing to remember, that we know what to do in our spiritual growth because we go within. We go through meditation and we listen clearly to our Creator. We are told we are worthy of that message. And like Trine reminds us, that message comes to us equally. We listen and we hear. Now the peace song, I remember when I first learned of the story behind the peace song, I just thought it was some Methodist hymn or some all-American song that had been sung forever. But there's a story behind it, and it relates to us, which is something I don't know if you know that. But it was written by, of course, Jill Jackson. And I remember reading in the December 2005 edition of Science of Mind magazine, they had a fantastic article called "It Began with Jill," all about the peace song and where it came from. And I was a few years into this teaching, and I just knew that every Sunday at the end we made a big circle and sang the song joyously, but I didn't know where it came from. So I was amazed, because I think sometimes in our humanness, we think when somebody has achieved something great, when someone has manifested something wonderful, they are very accomplished, as Jill Jackson was, as a celebrated songwriter. Here she's written this famous song, that she's somehow different than us. Well, maybe she had a lesson that I didn't have, or she was smarter than me or better than me, or maybe she had just that perfect life. Sometimes we think that, they have had that perfect life, problem-free, issue-free, and that's how she was able to so clearly know the truth about herself and about everyone else. But what's interesting was to know her truth, and that she wasn't just a songwriter. She was at first an actress. She was a Hollywood actress in lots of movies, performed around the world, had a huge mansion in Beverly Hills, had a husband who was in show business too. They entertained all the rich and famous of Beverly Hills. She had a staff of servants. Now, to a lot of people, that sounds like the recipe for automatic happiness and success. But she wasn't happy. This joyous song comes from someone who knew a great deal of pain in her life. But being such a wise person, she turned that pain into a life-changing experience that really manifested a life that's incredible, that we still celebrate today. And it's interesting, that article began with a few lines from her autobiography, and I'd like to share those with you. Here's this article in Science of Mind magazine, starting off with such a blow emotionally. It's amazing. She wrote, "I drove along Sunset Boulevard, staring blankly ahead. Where could I go that I would not be found right away? I pulled alongside the curb. It began to rain softly. Swallowing the pills with gulps of water, I welcomed the end. The curtain of night was falling, and the rain began to pour from the sky, beating against the roof and the sides of the car. Darkness was outside and inside. The sky was weeping tears I had not learned to shed. Thick dreams followed, fitful sleep and nausea. Small stirrings within, glimmers of hope and cleansing tears." Oof, that's how that article opened. That's the moment when the peace song was born. And how incredible is that this woman was able to go. We think sometimes, boy, if I had a life of riches and all needs met in the material world, I would be happy. But here Jill is standing testament to that not being the case. Her material needs were met, but at that point in her life, her soul was very hungry. She didn't know who she was, and she shares this in her book. In her humanness, she thought she wasn't enough. She was very hungry. She had a void, and that was a spiritual void. But that comes around, as we know. She says in her interview, I was an orphan at 3, a rejected ward of the state at 5, a ward of the court at 9, adopted at 12, a runaway at 19, and eventually a suicide attempt. That is how her life summed up before her spiritual awakening. And who do you think was there to assist her awakening? Science of Mind. Isn't that incredible that she's part of our family? She attended Science of Mind centers in California and Unity centers, and she was a close friend of Dr. Ernest Holmes, who founded our experience. In an interview, someone asked her, how close she was to Dr. Holmes and the role he played in her life. And she shared that she was lucky enough to have his personal phone number and could call him at any time for prayer and for guidance. That's lucky. I think, gosh, we're lucky to have his books and to have his words, but to have her own hotline to him, that is wonderful. And what do you think happened as soon as she had the spiritual awakening? That she remembered the truth about her, and that she could not only change her life, but change the world. She was a different person. You would think in reading about her that this is a totally different person. She found happiness within, not without. She found the love of peace within her and all around her. As soon as she found peace within her heart, she found peace in every aspect of her experience. She didn't need to be an actress anymore. That was an unhealthy career. She released that. She married Cy Miller, a fantastic and successful music composer and a loving, good guy. That's important. And had a happy family and a happy new career. And it's interesting, I love the story about how the peace song came about. They had written it. She had written it as a poem, and Cy had put it to music. But Jill always said, that's an odd song. That's what she would always be quoted saying, it's an odd song. No one's ever going to like it. So when a church's youth leader came to visit Jill and her husband, he said, well, we've got a whole bunch of songs, but they put the peace song at the bottom. At least Jill did. She thought, odd song, no one's going to like it. Well, the youth leader was coming through, flipping through the music, because they were looking forward to having a camp out, a kind of a spiritual camp out for the youths up in the mountains. And he said, well, pull this one song out. And he said, what about this one? And it was the peace song. Isn't that awesome? And how it was born, of course, it was played at their house, or they sang it. But the first time it was performed, truly sung and expressed, was 180 kids at a camp on a starry night up in the mountains in a circle. I'm going to get verklempt, singing Let There Be Peace on Earth. And they sang it, and they sang it, and they swayed, and they sang it. And they didn't just sing it. This isn't just something to be performed, but it is a musical prayer. They felt it. And I swear to you, and I know that the world felt it too. And Jill's gift was born into the world. Those kids went home. They're probably from all over the place. And they took the peace song with them. This little obscure song, the odd song that nobody would love. And they took it back to their schools. And people were playing it at graduations. They took it to their churches, like ours. We close it every day with that song. And suddenly, that song really took off. Let There Be Peace on Earth was sung at huge conventions, at huge political conventions, huge spiritual rallies. It was sung, we've recorded by, check this out, so it goes from the bottom of the pile to being recorded by Danny Kaye, Johnny Mathis, Pat Boone, Nat King Cole, and Vince Gill. He did it beautifully. That is amazing. That it was performed for the Russian leader Nikita Khrushchev and Presidents Carter, Reagan, and Clinton. That song took off, and that was Jill's gift to the world. Jill knew her worth, and she knew that she could make a difference. And she transitioned just a few years ago in Hawaii, happy and whole and ready for that next cosmic journey. So we thank her for that gift. So my question to you now is, now that you're reminded of your power, the power within you, and that's the power of God, the potential within you, and that's the potential of God, is there something during this talk that you've been called to give to yourself? called to give to the world? You don't have to answer me out loud, but answer to your heart. Is there something you're ready to reveal in your life, knowing that it can be revealed for everyone? That in setting yourself free, that you can set everyone else free. So I'd like to end this talk with a spiritual mind treatment where I will do the first 2 steps. We will recognize who God is, unify God and us, and when it comes to the part of realization, I will welcome you to speak out loud your affirmative prayer, I am peace, I am joy, I am compassion, or you can say it silently to yourselves. Either way, God hears that. So let's close our eyes and go within, opening our hearts and our minds to the full awareness that God is the one power. God is the one life, the source of all being, the body, the mind, and the soul of this whole universe, so beautifully manifesting at all points and all times throughout all existence and within each and every one of us. I speak my word that I am a divine child of God, made by God, of God, a reflection of God, of joy and beauty and abundance. I know this to be true of every person here this morning. We are divine spiritual beings here by divine appointment. Here as our gifts to the universe, beautiful and unique expressions of God, called forth to share what only we can share, to learn what only we can learn, and to accomplish only what we can accomplish. So right now, we speak our word silently or out loud to the universe, speaking affirmatively our prayer, our gift to the world. What we reveal in our hearts now, or what we express and share for the universe. And we are unfurled, gloriously released and unfurled, all attributes of God, so beautifully alive and revealed in our experience. We are heard right now. Every prayer this morning, spoken aloud or spoken sweetly at the soul level, is heard this morning. And God responds by revealing within us every quality of itself, making the way easy, making the way right, revealing the light of God within us, a light that shines out throughout the world, making the way easy for all, sharing the God love within us for all. And we release this treatment unto the universe with great anticipation, knowing that we are changed and that we have in fact changed the world right now by stepping forward and making this grand decision to be the love and the power and the glory of God as our gift to this beautiful universe. And we release this treatment knowing our work is done, resting in comfort, resting with confidence, knowing that all is truly well. And so it is.